maneuver!
Welcome back to another Top 5 list. I'm Sam Tate, I always ready before I review, and today I've got the best Chaos Symbol foundations. Now first, I want to plug the Orange Card Blue Card podcast going live for its first episode on Twitch. I'm going to have Go Beyond Gaming's Andrew Holder there, and we're going to talk about cards that we're excited for from the new set and maybe his experience at the Omaha Provisional this last weekend. So come check it out. April 12th, we're going to be going on at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, right before the Unfun Stuff, guys. Can't wait to see you all there. Now, without further ado, let's jump into the top 5 list, starting with number 5, In the Typhoon. Now, this 3 difficulty plus 1 mid block says enhance remove, discard 2 cards. This attack is completely blocked. No muss, no fuss, no control check necessary. You just have to lose 2 cards from hand instead of 1. So that's a pretty steep cost. You're essentially -3. However, it is a cost that you are always willing to pay when it is most relevant. Now, on the flip side, having played with the card some, I find there is some use if I have too many cards in my hand and I can tell that my opponent isn't really going to have a long attack string against me, and I can get frustrated sometimes that I have too many cards in my hand, that I held too much for such a low impact turn. But using In the Typhoon can allow me to get rid of 2 really bad blocks and essentially review 2 extra cards. It's not a great use, but it is something to consider when possibly unbricking yourself. Now, on top of that, even if you don't have the 2 cards to pay in your hand, it still has a +1 mid block. So I find myself running multiple copies of this card because at its worst, it's still one of the best blocks on the symbol. And at number 4, we have First Day of Class. This is a pretty simple foundation. It has enhanced commit. If it's your first attack, your next check to play an attack gets +2. And then the first time it's committed during the enhanced step, you can respond, flip, and then ready it. Right now, most of the stuff at the top of the meta is low risk offense, whether it was Kirishima's ability to build, Jiro looking at her control checks, Tokoyami's check bonuses, and Denki's foundations that ready things for the air symbol in general readying cards. This has been one of the most prevalent factors, is being able to run your offense and still have the resources completely ready to block with. First Day of Class goes a long way to reaching that goal, and it still counts as stun hate. And so one of the things that was really strong is the ability to, of course, reduce your opponent's resource count. So this card kind of can play both sides if you think of it that way. And it also pairs really well with commit 1 foundation costs. So effects like 1.3 million volts or Midnight's cost for her enhance, you can essentially still get the ready foundation to pay for those costs while using the +2 check bonus. So all in all, a very potent card. It's still pretty much just an aggro card, but you can use it in a lot of cool ways. The +2 to the bonus applies to your next attack, so Air Jiro decks can play their first attack, build some in the middle, and still get +2 to the check. It's more versatile than people think. Then at number 3, we have Release. Now, this is one of my personal favorite foundations, so I don't know how high it would be on many people's lists, but the way that I look at it is that it turns dead resources into staying alive. And staying alive is my first priority when I'm on defense. You have to play to your outs a lot of the times in tournament play, but at the same time, this card can give you a lot of outs. It has interesting interactions with cards like Plus Ultra. Giving the bonus to the check instead of reducing the speed means that we can overcome Plus Ultra's biggest weakness of progressive difficulty. On top of that, it's a low difficulty foundation with a high block, which is very relevant in this format. Next up, at number 2, we have Irrefutable Force of Nature. This is a solid control piece whether you're on offense or defense. A lot of the best foundations in the game have earth, fire, or water on them, but in a pinch, you can still remove it to seal any foundation. On top of that, even though it might not seem super relevant, it is one of the few cards that can deal with an asset in set 1. And I think that's gotta count for something. So on top of locking down your opponent's best foundation and being flexible enough to seal anything when you really need it to, I think it earns its spot at number 2. And now, the number 1 best foundation on the Chaos symbol is Self-Assured. Self-Assured has E-Commit change the zone of any attack, and then E-Destroy draw 1 card for every 4 ranged attacks in your discard pile. So zone changers, in my opinion, are some of the strongest effects in the game. When and how your opponent blocks is probably the most useful information you can have, at least on offense, and zone changers allow us to use that information to our advantage at any moment. On top of that, the late game draw potential for this card is enormous. Right now, a lot of the best attacks on Chaos are ranged, including 1.3 million volts, Meteor Shower, and pretty much the whole Todoroki kit. Both modes of this card, the zone change effect or the card draw effect, can be pretty difficult to play around, whether you're counting on your opponent to not have the right blocks in hand or just not have that many in general. Hand advantage, card advantage is pretty universal, and I think that changing the zone of an attack is almost like card advantage in this game a lot of the time, allowing you to cancel out an attack that you otherwise couldn't have, essentially stops you or really gives you the full value of a 1-for-1, right? Instead of a 1 for half, if you want to think of it that way. Anyhow, let me know down in the comments below if you disagree with anything on the top 5. Tell me what your favorite foundation on the Chaos symbol is, and if you're Kevin Broberg, tell me just how important changing the zone of an attack can be. Anyhow, thank you guys for watching. Like if you like, subscribe if you want to. I'll see you all next time.